Friends, welcome to week 7 of our time together here in 1 Corinthians. We're going to be in chapter 6 this week, verses 1 through 11. And Paul is going to be talking about one of our favorite things, which is conflict. How do we deal with conflict among believers? He's telling the Corinthian church, don't do what they did. In chapter 6, they're just suing each other over and over. And so he was saying, how can you bring a lawsuit against another believer? Granted, there are times to bring lawsuits against other believers. We get that. Paul is saying, maybe not immediately. Let that not be our first response, because these are the kind of things that can tear down a church. Instead of seeking reconciliation with one another, we go for restitution. We demand kind of our pound of flesh. We demand to be made right. And Paul is saying within Christ's church, we are to suffer wrongs. In verse 7, rather, he says, to have lawsuits at all with one another is already a defeat for you. Why not rather suffer wrong? Why not rather be defrauded? But you yourself wrong and defraud even your own brothers. And so he is saying here that that's what the world does. That's what the unrighteous do. He's going to talk about that a lot. That they seek to kind of get ahead. They seek to take and not give. And that he wants you to seek to solve issues of disagreement biblically before you go to the civil magistrate, before you go to the government, before you go to the courtroom. How can we deal within kind of the courtroom within our own hearts? What is it that we're really after? What is it when we feel wronged? What has that agitated within us that we could take to Jesus and say, Jesus, could you deal with this? Could you deal with this part of me? Because we know, if we know anything, we know this. It is really hard to live in this world. We're going to be let down a lot. There's going to be conflict with your roommates. There's conflict with your spouses, conflict with your parents and with your kids. And so what is verse 10 and 11? This is one of the questions we'll ask. What does that say about Christ's willingness and ability to bring redemption to all types of people? Those that are different from us and those that are exactly like us. How do we seek the peace again and the purity of the church? Not run away from fights, not hide behind things like lawsuits, as we're going to see here in chapter 6, but instead, how do we approach conflict biblically? Scripture lays this out for us. Matthew 18 is a great place to go for that. And again, this is going to be another place where maybe folks in your group who have been hurt by the church and have been hurt by other Christians, certainly in the church, this might be a place where they'll trip up a little bit. And so offering encouragement to them that Jesus Christ loves sinners, of whom we're the worst, and that allowing what Christ has done for us to inform how we see other people. That there are times that we can lay aside what we want for the sake of the gospel. That there are times, just like Jesus did, the one who was the most right ever, still laid aside his rights to seek his bride and to go after his church. And so when we get to chapter 6, this is what Paul might be teaching some of us here. How do we engage in a conflict when we have conflict with other folks? And how does the gospel bring all that to light? What is God seeking to do within our own hearts and within our relationships? And how can God redeem both of those? So that's where chapter 6 is going to bring us, week 7 together, I believe. Again, as we always say, if you have any questions at all, reach out to the discipleship director at your campus, reach out to myself. You can reach out to your pastor. We would love to talk about any of this that might, anything that may be brought up. So enjoy week 7 of your time together.